Hello, everyone. The theme of this video, and it's very appropriate, is putting out fires for your clients and being like a firefighter in business. And I am going through that fire right now. This is like a situation where, for some reason, I guess Bell is having some issues, which is the internet provider in Canada, or one of, and it's basically causing conflicts with my video. So I cannot do video. I can do audio. You guys can hear me, hopefully, but I cannot do video for whatever reason. I am just this floating head that's speaking to you today. Um, and this is the type of fire that I'm talking about. But generally, the what I really wanted to get into is the fires that my clients actually light themselves and how we deal with those. I'm going to give a pretty like good example, and then I'm going to ask each of the people who make up the core four to give their stories and their solutions that they had to come up with to deal with the various fires that their clients set for themselves. Um, First, I'd like to introduce my other core four members. We got Michael Yasny. He's the money man. And Michael, just give a quick introduction to yourself.
Okay, Michael Yazzie, my company's Money Consultants, and I help arrange financing for businesses that can't go to the bank. I do this through a number of different financing structures: factoring, purchase order financing, leasing, private mortgages, Canadian small business loan. I also help companies that get into financial trouble. They can be in financial trouble with their creditors, their banks, leasing companies, other creditors such as the CRA. If you have got trouble with the CRA, you have problems for your entire business and they're not going away. So if you need help arranging financing to grow your business, or if you need help getting out of trouble with your business, the Core Four and myself through financing can help you do that. Thank you.
Great. And my next guest is Tova. Tova is our communications person, I would say. But give a better description of yourself, Tova.
Hi, thank you, Alan. And Alan and I go back a long time. Actually, a lot of the Core Four and all of us go back. We've had overlap quite a few years and decades. My name's Tova Gazin, and the reason I'm here is actually I do more than communication. I actually help you with your messaging. And imagine a fire that you don't know what kind of message to give. Imagine being a sports team and you're failing in after the seventh game, and all you say is blah 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 blah, and all the fans who paid lots of money to watch you don't even know what to say. I help you with your messaging, whether it be emails, whether it be communication through radio, TV, whatever you have to say, I help you say it so that I'm helping you with your voice, and your voice is heard the way that you need to be heard. Thank you, Alan, and I'm going to turn it back to you.
Okay, cool. So, and then our last but not least guest is Vered. And Vered is, I keep on saying jack of all trades, but that's not really a good description. A better description is she's a business coach and helps businesses with their business emotional intelligence. I'm not sure how to describe it. You can do a better description of yourself. I'll let Vered explain herself better.
Thank you so much. Yes, so I am not a jack of all trades. However, I do have a lot of exposure to different areas of business, which is why people think so. I've created an ecosystem where I do provide a whole bunch of different services for businesses, but I don't do it all myself. I work with amazing experts such as these wonderful folks that you see here to be able to do that. But I do a lot myself. So basically, I am a business coach, consultant, mentor. I do a lot of business fixing for people, which is what we're going to be talking about today. That's why I'm leading with that. And with the emotional intelligence, I do also help people fix themselves from the inside out or improve themselves from the inside out. And I am sort of that conduit between the heart and the mind, for personal and for business.
Very nice. Okay, so today's theme is we're going to talk about the various fires. Like I think one fire each, I guess. This will be a 4-fire. What is it? Is it a 4? Is it a 4 alarm fire situation? Is that the term? And basically, we're going to talk about the various fires that our clients have lit for their businesses and how we as professionals help put those fires out. I'm going to give you an example of one that I did or had one of my clients. And this was, I feel sometimes like I'm a victim of my own success. So what happens is I get the client to the top of the rankings, their business starts to flourish, and then I get the call. And this call is usually like all of a sudden they're freaking out. They're freaking out. Their business is crashing. Everything's going downhill. And I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And what'll happen is I get them top of the ranking, and the way I do that is through optimizing their website, optimizing their link structure, optimizing everything within their website. And what'll happen is that because they're successful, they're like, oh, we have to get a new website. We have to make it look pretty and do all this wonderful stuff. So I've literally had one client where this will appeal to you guys on the Jewish side here. One of my clients, I got them ranked for the word bagel. #1 in the world for the word bagel and bagel shops and stuff like that. So they were dominating for bagels, okay? And they were like, we got to take this to the next level. So they hired an executive from Nike, okay? And they wanted to do this whole new design. And the Nike guy's like, oh, just do it. We gotta use this new look and feel, and has to be like brilliant and wonderful. Their site went from being like very SEO driven, where it had like, words and stuff that kind of reflected the keywords that I was trying to put into their website, to a site that was literally built in Flash. Nobody uses Flash, by the way. It was built entirely in Flash. It was a 1-page website. It went from like a 20, 30-page site to a 1-page website. And it was just total like design over substance. Like you go into it, you're not like sure there's bagels there, but you're not even sure how to connect with the people. Like it's all design. It's all like marketing messaging, and and they're like, they're just a simple bagel shop. Like this is like they've overkilled it, right? And so all of a sudden their business is dead. They went from being dominating and like getting huge amount of orders and stuff like that to basically closed overnight kind of thing. So I had to basically, what I did was I kind of put in a different version of their website in the back end. So what I did was I had it where they had this kind of pretty thing, which they loved. I don't know why they loved it so much. But then there was a link that I used in order to have it, if you are on a certain browser, you can go to this version of the website, which was the old site. And basically I just had their old site be the site that the search engines would see. And also most users would skip this stupid Flash site and go to the user-driven, the user experience site that was actually the original site. So basically, I just restored their old site, created this kind of redirect and stuff, and they just wasted all their money on that stupid site. But I saved them in the end. They got back their rankings, they got back their business, and they had a pretty looking thing at the front of their site that nobody actually looked at. But it served their ego, and it would have been nice had they consulted me, like I actually, this was a month after they had done all this that they tell me. They never told me. I thought that business was usual, and they just never consulted me. They never even thought to ask me, and that was the most frustrating part. But then I'm the one that always gets the blame. The first person that gets blamed when the marketing fails is the marketing guy, right? Even if they're the ones that sabotage the marketing. And that's the type of fire that I'm constantly putting out, where clients they will think that they're smarter than me, or they'll think, oh, we don't need to ask Alan. And they'll do something on their own, and they will light the biggest fire you can ever imagine, and destroy their own businesses. I always say I'm not worried about the competition. I'm worried about the client. And because I can beat the competition, but can I beat the client? I don't know. Sometimes very hard. So that's my story. But it was a really interesting one. I hope for you guys. And I'll ask Michael to share. I'm sure when people come to money, they really are lighting like some fires. So I'd like to hear Michael's story.
Yes, there's news stories every day with people coming to me. One that has a lot of different things, a lot of moving pieces, was a small manufacturing company that found me. They were looking for financing. We met. Now, what were their problems? The problems were a lot. They owed money to the landlord, but that was okay, sort of, because the landlord was a partner in the business, a silent partner in the business, and they were a multi-billion-dollar company, and this was a small company doing $1 million a year tops. They had very old equipment that was inefficient, although they had a few pieces of equipment that the father and son had built themselves that were very interesting. They owed money for their major commodity, which was zinc. So they were having problems getting zinc, so they couldn't buy zinc to do the next order until the first order got paid, and it was just a circle of failure going on. And they owed money to the government because they used that to borrow to pay the zinc company. So nothing was going well except for their clients were all billion-dollar companies that wanted their product because they could do just-in-time shipping. They didn't have to order big container loads from China or the United States. They could order what they needed for that day or that week. So I went in and I looked at the business and, not knowing a lot about injection molding and this business, although I'd seen their products in different places, I took a little bit deeper look at it to see where we needed help. How were we going to do it? Well, we needed to get rid of the landlord as a partner and as a credit holder. We needed new equipment, but how could we get new equipment in right away without it getting taken away in a bankruptcy? We had to deal with the government, and we had to deal with the zinc people that were owed money. So we had a conversation with the landlord and the landlord and partner and explained to them that we were going to bankrupt the company. We put new equipment in. I financed new equipment to go in there, but every piece of equipment was labeled the property of my company. Now, I got directions from a trustee to do that so that if the bankruptcy, that wouldn't be included in the bankruptcy. The CRA, we made their arrangement for payment. Now we had to deal with the zinc company because without zinc, there's no business. So we went on a contract, which my company guaranteed. So we bought a future contract in zinc. And we made arrangements, even though there was a bankruptcy, we made arrangements that the zinc company wouldn't be completely out. And part of that was that I guaranteed the debt going forward. So whatever zinc we bought, we got 30, 60 days, but my company guaranteed it if the company didn't pay. So now we got that straightened out. Now we had the equipment. We got a contract for zinc. Now we had to fix the business itself. The business itself had a problem. Moving the product in and out because it did not flow smoothly in the factory. We had to fix the dies because the whole business was die casting, so you needed proper dies. The problem with their dies is they were too small as far as cavities go. So the one major product, they could produce 6 at a time. Well, that wasn't sufficient, so we made a new die with 36 cavities. So same thing, one punch out, 36 instead of 6. The other thing was that we had to deal with was pricing. So that one commodity, that was the smallest piece, but the largest quantity that was sold, they were selling as a loss leader. And I said, how can you sell as loss leader? Well, everybody does. I said, let me understand. This is costing you 11 or 12 cents and you're selling it for 9. They said, yes. I said, stop selling it. Well, everybody will stop doing business with us. I said, no, they won't. You want to make it? We got a new die. We'll make it. Except we're selling it for 12 cents because now it's only going to cost us 9 cents. Nobody will buy it from us. I said, everybody will buy it, or you won't lose any money. That's the worst thing that's going to happen is you won't lose money, and they'll buy the other 19 parts that you sell, or 29 different things that you sell. But you're not going to lose money. So now we addressed every part. Now, a lot of the parts, they were making good money on. They just didn't sell large quantities. But now we had a structure. You do not sell anything you do not make money on. Let somebody else lose their money. Okay? And I had learned that from a guy that was very high up in a steel company supplying to GM. And he was in my office, and he gets a phone call from a sales department. We went from first place with the order with GM to third place. What should we do? Should we put in a new price? And he said, no. And they were, well, we're going to lose the contract. He says, no, we're not. We're just not going to lose any money. Let DeFasco sell it at cost. Let Stelco sell it at cost. They can't produce the whole order, so we'll catch the last bit of the order, but we'll make money. And that's what I explained to this company. You will make money by providing the service everybody wants. So charge for it. You can't be unreasonable, but you're allowed to make money. So we made money because we now had the right pricing. We now had the equipment that lowered our costs and produced the goods faster. We had a zinc contract that allowed us to buy the zinc for a lot less. The company was doing, when I met them, was doing $50,000 to $100,000 a month in business. Within 1 year of the bankruptcy, they were up to $500,000 or $600,000 a month, between $500,000 and $600,000 a month, making a lot of money. But they needed direction. They needed help. They needed to see how the business runs instead of the company they had, which was fixing today's problem and worrying about the next problem tomorrow. You needed to fix everything. And I went in there and we fixed everything because we looked at everything. We didn't just look at what they thought, well, we need money to buy zinc. No, you need equipment. You need to do direction. You need new pricing. Giving money for zinc is not going to solve your problem. You can't produce enough of the order because your machines don't produce it properly. You have extra steps. Your machines are outdated. Your dies are too small. You need money in here now. It's true we had to put money into the business, but there was such an upside, all because of the nature of their business and the fact that they really had no competition. All the competition had gone offshore. Mm-hmm. So this was a great market for them because everybody wanted their product. And now you also have to stand up for yourself. One of the clients wanted to pay the receivable 2% 10 days. And we said we don't need the money because I was providing factoring financing. And that's how we provided the cash flow, was through factoring. So they were able to sell their invoice every day instead of waiting 30 or 60 days. And they had the money to pay the zinc and the employees and the new equipment leases and so forth. And that company says we only pay 2% 10 days. So we had no choice. They were, $100,000, $150,000 a month of business. We weren't going to give it up. Anyways, we gave them the 2% 10 days, and they didn't pay. They're paying you 30 days and 40 days. So I called them up, and it says, we're not selling to you anymore. And they go, well, you have to sell to us. I said, we don't have to do anything. You're not paying us. So there's no 2% 10 anymore. There's nothing. You owe us money for all the 2% back. So they made us a deal with it. They said, we still want the 2% 10 days because that's how we do business. We'll give you back all the 2% that we took off for all the other orders we didn't pay you on time. And they started sending out post-dated checks for 10 days just so they'd get the 2% off. And we accepted it, and we grew with them, and we grew the business. And eventually we retired the debt. But we had to put in place a lot of business ideas that the company didn't have because they didn't have the proper management in place, because all their time, all the management's time was putting out fires. Once they were able to bring somebody else that could take a look without emotion and could bring some money to the table, we fixed the business and they grew the business. And today they've sold the business to another entity. But that's what helping companies that are having problems, that have fires to put out, is looking at the entire business, not the one room that's on fire, because another room will start on fire. It's just a matter of time. So going in there and asking the questions and being able to come up with the answers and bring the other people to the table that can help with the business, be it the website, be it the marketing, be it the coaching. That's what Core 4 does when it comes to a company, to help change the way a company does business. It needs to be fixed. If it didn't need to be fixed, we wouldn't hear from them. So that's what we look to do, is helping companies help think about how we can solve the problems and what's the best way. And we do that quickly, and we do that honestly and fairly with the company, and we help them grow. Thank you.
Nice example. The funny thing is that I hear that kind of story very often, where people don't price to make money. I don't know. It seems like the most basic thing in business, but it's amazing how often it happens.
Right. Well, they're trying to just create cash flow. You see it a lot right now in the trucking industry. There are two kinds of trucking companies: the ones that do loads for cash flow because they just need the money, then they'll worry about making a profit down the road. And then there are the other companies that won't take on a load if they don't make money. And that's the same thing. People need to understand how much things cost. That's another problem. They don't always understand how much their business costs to get their service or product to market. And that's, again, something that I definitely look into when I go into a company to help them out.
Very nice. Okay, Tova, what's your story? What's your fire that you put out?
Thank you very much, Alan and Michael. Actually, this is really interesting because the bagel story is something I use in business and for communication. How to create a storyline or a presentation, I use the bagel method, but it's basically having an introduction, 3 ingredients, and a conclusion, and having that story of how to get it together. And Michael talked about injecting molding, which I'm not so sure I know very much about it. But one of the things that he said was that you have to make sure you're making money very early on. And I've done a lot of business consulting and business entrepreneurship over the decades. But one of the things that somebody said to me is, you're not charging enough. And how to get that communication, how to get that story out that you're worth a lot more. And I decided there was this one client that I really felt that he had fires going all the time. He had no idea who his ideal client was. He said everyone. Well, everyone's not your client, but okay, I'll bite with this. And I charged him an exorbitant amount of money because I didn't want him as a client. I wanted to say, see you later. But he said, Tova, you need to give me a price list. And I gave him a price list, and I gave 3 choices because I believe that you always have 3 choices. The first one was just a crazy amount that I just made up. The middle one was still a crazy amount, and the last one was just a joke. He went with the top one. I ended up working with him, and again, helping him with his messaging. Everyone is my client. I want to deal with women only because women, and actually was a finance guy, and women love to make money and they don't know what they're doing. This is the story he's telling me. And I'm saying, you cannot say this. This is not your messaging. But he would set fires. He actually loved setting fires, not just the figurative ones, but the real ones. He loved bonfires. He loved creating fires. So he would always fight me on everything. So going back to Alan, who your customers sometimes are not your favorite people because they're putting out fires that they actually put on. Well, this is funny because a couple of major banks, and I'm not going to name them, but there was a couple of major banks, the CEOs had to get up on stage and they had to have a message. They had to talk. And they were umming and awing and I don't even know what they were saying. And I'm looking, and all I want to do is run up on stage and give them a big hug and say, please let me help you. But they didn't feel that they needed their messaging. They thought their messaging can be whatever I say is going to be great and it's wonderful because I know how to make lots of money, so I'm going to teach you. Well, if you don't know how to talk, that's a problem. And I go back to this NHL team, and I'm a hockey fan. I actually like all kinds of sports. I know most women don't, but I love sports. But this one hockey team who has been failing for many, many, many decades waited. We had all the fans walked out because they just didn't show up. They really didn't show up. They did really well in the preseason or before the playoffs, and they just choked. Now all they had to do was say, "We are sorry." All they had to say is say, "We are sorry. We take responsibility." Their messaging really was awful. They blamed each other. They blamed every single person. But it's catering to who your clients are. If you know who your clients are and how to get to them, it's to listen to them, actively listening. Some of us just go blah, 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 blah. And I'm using the blah, blah, blahs because it sort of works for me right now. It's like Charlie Brown, blah, 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 was that messaging that they would always say when they were adding filler. And filler words and filler items in our messaging. Imagine being that company, and there was a company that I dealt with that sent out emails. They love sending emails. They wouldn't spell check them. They wouldn't look at them. And how many of you have actually got an email that says, "Dear Sir, Madame"? I hate those. I know that they're fake. I know that I'm going to have some spammy things, but this is how they send an email. Imagine saying, "Hi, Michael, how are you today? Hi, Alan, how are you today?" And I wanted to reach out to you just to ask you a quick question. When do you have a few minutes? Farrad, do you have a few minutes to talk about your business today? These are calm, quiet, wonderful messages as opposed to, "Hey, sir, madam." It's about getting on the phone. Sometimes we have to pick up a phone. Now, there's a lot of telephobic people that don't like to pick up a phone and say hello to people. It's about having a relationship with your customer or your clients and knowing how to message them the way they want to be messaged. A lot of people today use text messaging. And they send messages, and I see the messages, and I have no idea what they say. And there's be right back, which is BRB, or FYI. Like, you have to know the lingo. I mean, I do, and I'm making fun right now. But it's having your message and being crystal clear. It's having key strategies for effective communication. How do you have to communicate that you just lost billions upon billions of dollars? How do you have to message that you messed up, and I apologize to all my creditors, and I apologize to all my, and you can fill in the blanks. But it's how to be authentic, how to be truthful, kind. Farrad said heart-centered. It's very heart-centered, having kindness and knowing that you have a clear communication channel with the person. Alan said that a lot of his clients, that they won't reach out to him, but maybe it's crafting that newsletter that tells people what you're doing now. How can they best reach out to you? And having to follow up and follow through with each and every client. Now, sometimes it may not be great to pick up the phone to maybe hundreds of millions of clients, but maybe you have a newsletter that they can opt into. Maybe there's a way to reach them in a great way. Maybe having webinars like we're doing right now. The Core 4 is here to help you. Each of us have a lot of overlap with each other, and we have ideas on how to help you. Now, a lot of people will say, "Well, please give me a cookie cutter way of doing this." No, a lot of us don't do cookie cutter. It'd be nice to have monopoly motels and hotels for every single one of you, and they'd be exactly the same. But your company and your clients are different. Each one brings something to the table that the other doesn't have. And your competition, I love competition. Why? Because it means what you're doing is really working. And are you going to be totally the same as your competition? No. There's a big company, they have a double M, and it's called McDonald's. And every single child that drives by, whether they eat McDonald's or not, knows about who McDonald's is. Do they make the best burgers in town? No. But do they have good distribution? Yes. Do they have good communication? Yes. People know them because they get the word out in a positive way. Now, if that same company had some big, huge fire, they did something really bad, don't you think that that would have also good publicity for them? No. It depends. Depends how they give this the spin on it. So it's how you give your spin on all your messaging, that you're going on brand and that you're talking to your clients, as opposed to loving that website that they love, going back to the bagel place. Maybe they needed to talk about how you're really hungry right now and you really need that bagel. And having that injection with a zinc. I'm so excited about zinc right now. I want to put it on my nose. I'm just kidding. But how to have it so that makes it interesting. Speaking in a way that makes people want to listen to you. At Core 4, and I'm going to conclude right now, we are helping you every step of the way, whether you need to put out a fire or to be proactive and not have the fire ever happen, because we're here to help you. Now, how to save that business after the fire, we can do that too. Do we want that? No, that's not the best situation. But we like to be proactive, and we want to help you so that there is no fire in your business, or you've planned for the fire, and that's all you have to do is plan and never have to use it. Thank you.
Okay. Interesting. I was expecting a little different answer, actually. But yeah, I think I've seen that often, where you get the executive of the company, kind of earlier in your example, where they get the executive. Supposedly, the executive's the person that can understand the company best, knows how to represent the company best. And then when they get up to speak, they are totally tongue-tied and really can't communicate what their company is about. I've seen that happen a lot, strangely.
Well, Alan, what I really see a lot is the oops. Oops, I made a mistake, and how to fix the oops. And I really would like to hear what you thought I was going to say, because that's interesting. But I never like to have cookie cutter, as I said.
Yeah. I was actually expecting. There was a few things where we worked together on a couple of clients. I was expecting a couple examples of things where we had been together. So that's why I was like, oh, I know a few fires that you've been putting out. So yeah, but it was interesting.
We
So,
actually, Alan and I think Verit was there. We were actually at a conference where the firemen were actually called because there was a small fire, and I happened to use that because, how often do you get to be with beautiful men that are firefighters? So we had a photo op, and we actually turned the fire into something fun.
Cool. Okay. Verid, what's your story of your clients' fires?
Thank you. Yeah, that was really interesting, Tova. We got a lot of different examples from you. And just, as an aside with the McDonald's thing, I mean, they're all about, the heart, right? So they have their Happy Meal, which is an emotion, and their da 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 da, I'm loving it, right? So they have that slogan and that jingle, which is really great, because when you feel good, you want to have something, whether you enjoy it or not. It's just knowing that other people are loving it. So yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, I have fires that I put out all the time, and it really depends on the context, because I work in different areas of businesses, and of course with the personal development. So I'm going to give like two small examples that will kind of make up for a big one. So the first one is about a company, and I'm going to go into more of like the heart centered, right? The people part of it. A company that was a family business, and they decided to, I guess, placate their son and hire his girlfriend. Now, they were very young at the time, and probably not so experienced divorced, and so there was a lot of like there's a problem now. Generational gaps are really big, and this wonderful young lady was doing great within the company. She was learning the ropes and getting guidance and figuring things out. And it was, then it became a sense of entitlement. Well, I'm the owner's son's girlfriend, and she wanted special privileges, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So those were the little fires that I was kind of putting out at the time, and just dealing with that and the different dynamics going on within the company, and then how others were relating to her because she was getting all these perks, or seemingly getting all these perks. But that all came to a head as well, because things like that can turn on you. And so she had an issue with the boyfriend. He ended up breaking up with her, but she was still an employee of the business. And that didn't go over so well. And she ended up being very resentful. And so they told her, look, you need to either, figure it out, step up, or step out. You need to either do your job, or we're going to have to let you go. We're not going to let you go because you're not together anymore. However, you're still an employee of this business, so you need to pull your weight. And of course, she didn't, and she couldn't stand seeing him all the time, and it just became very bad. She started putting things online about the company. So we had to put out a lot of fires with all kinds of reviews and comments and things like that. And they were all traced back to her. As Alan can probably attest to, you can do a lot of, history and figure out who's doing what. So they did hire a private investigator, and they were able to see that it was her doing all of this. So they went to her parents, because this was a family issue at this point, and said, look, your daughter is young. We don't want to get her in trouble, but this is what's going on. The parents, of course, couldn't do much because this girl was out of control already. And then she went to the labor board and filed a complaint against them because they gave her a warning that they were going to let her go if she wasn't going to, do the right thing. Anyway, again, it became a huge fire. And I had to go in. I tried to do the mediation with her. She wasn't really listening. There's only so far you can go with mediation, but she decided she was going to try and take them to the cleaners. So she did go to the labor board, and we had the hearing, and we were there. And of course, when all the evidence was presented, she lost. And it really reflected badly on her. And I felt bad because she is so young and she was driven by emotion. And this is where I can come in to solve those issues. I was able to work with her afterwards, which is really great, because I was able to represent the company and save them the legal issues of having to deal with the labor board and labor relations and all that. So that was good. But then here's this girl, and she's young and she's hurt, and now she's lost in sort of a court battle against an employer. So I was able to do a little bit of work with her and get her to a point of understanding what happened and dealing with her emotions. And then I even gave her some career guidance, and she was able to move on and get a really great job with another company while she was going back to school. We figured out what she was interested in and what career she wanted to pursue. So those were a lot of little fires, and that could have come up to like one big explosion, right? Which we were able to avoid. So that's one part. The second example that I want to share, that I'd like to share, is somewhere with a business, right? In terms of their operations. And so there was this company who they do graphic design, and they were working with a client, and they didn't have a lot of procedures in place. And I'm all about processes and procedures and operational efficiency. But what happened was they were very heart-centered in this case again, and they were giving more than they should have, and they took a little bit more than they could chew. They bit off a little bit more than they can chew, because this was a very demanding client. It was a small business that wanted them to do a lot of big work for them. And it was just on and on and on. So no matter how many times they did revisions and how many things they offered and how much work they put into it, hours of, consulting and then doing the work and presenting the proofs and all of that, they just kept coming back for more. And so they contacted me and they said, look, we can't do this anymore. We're losing money on this. At this point, we've given more than we can recover. They're not going to pay us anymore. And they're not happy with, we don't want to get a bad review. And what can you do? So, of course, I came in, I started doing the mediation. I started thinking about, how can we please this customer and still please the company to be able to recover what they thought they had lost and put into it. So I had a conversation with the client, and it was just a communication issue. It was just about, we want this and we don't want that, but it wasn't a clear communication, but it wasn't also a clear messaging from the company saying this is what we can offer and no more, and giving them those boundaries and those guidelines. And I always say, like, give a firm way of how you work with your clients. So make everything digitalized, give forms, have them fill out information, share maybe what you're working on so that they can proof it before you spend so many hours doing it. And we were able to now bring him back and the client and make sure that he was happy with the end result. And from there, I worked with my clients, the company, on how to streamline their process, how to onboard their clients. What are we expecting to solve for them or to create for them in a way that's really strategic, and in a way that is centralized, where everyone can have access to the information with a go-to person, like a project manager that they can assign, or a way like a hub where the client can log in and see where things are standing and redirect if it's not going in the way that they perceived. And then having a way on the sign-offs, on the agreement to things, on the payment, and saying we can only allow X amount of hours on this, or we can only allow this many, revisions or whatever it is. And then that's your final product. And this is what you've paid for it. So we were able to salvage him as a client, where he kept coming back for more, thank goodness. And also now the company has a system in place so that this will never happen again. All right. Those were my two examples for now.
Yeah, the first one really resonates with me because I've seen that a lot, where companies make the mistake of either hiring family members or hiring boyfriends or girlfriends that can just be as bad as family members or even worse, because if there's a breakup, that can really shake up the business.
Mm-hmm.
I can. So in that case, were you working for both the girl and the company, or were they as two separate clients?
So at the beginning, I was working for the company. They were my client, and I was representing them and trying to figure out. They were outsourcing their HR to me, so I was able to work. So I did have a relationship with her, right, through the company,
Through HR,
obviously,
yeah, yeah.
through the HR, and I was trying to mediate at that level, and it wasn't working because she was so upset, and she wouldn't take no for an answer, and she just didn't. She couldn't bring herself to continue at that level working there, knowing that she's no longer with the son, and that he's now moved on with his life, and she was still part of the family business, and she couldn't handle it. There wasn't a level of maturity for her to be able to handle it, even though she was growing in her work. It just that piece wasn't meshing. So it came to a head, and it got to a point where she went to the labor board, but she did it out of spite. It wasn't that she had a
Yeah,
case. And so then I
yeah.
had to represent them, and of course, putting on all of those things online. That was really, I mean, you can get yourself in a lot of legal trouble doing that. It's called slander, right?
Yeah, of course.
So you can't do that. And so I had to educate her. We were working with her and her family at this point because it was a family business, right? I don't usually like to cross those lines, but they had already been blurred. So I was
Mhm.
trying to work on all fronts. Now, after I worked with I represented the company and cleared them of any wrongdoing with the labor board. I approached her with their actually they requested, it wasn't even their consent. They said, can you just help her out. We feel really bad because it wasn't their fault that their son broke up with her, right? But they
Mhm.
created this mess by bringing her on. So they asked me if I would extend an offer to her to work with her and help her out, right? So I did that, and she accepted. She knew that I was, good at what I do, and I worked with her, and we had a, sort of a relationship at that point because I was already working with her on an HR capacity, and I was able to guide her and to coach her and to mentor her and to show her where I thought she went, where we knew she went wrong, but where I thought she could go right. And she was open to that. And after seeing the devastation that can happen and seeing where she went wrong and how it could have harmed more than helped her, she was receptive and open to working with someone like me who was able then to guide her on doing things in a better way. So they were both my clients at that point.
Very, very cool. Interesting situation. I almost feel like the son should have hired the next girlfriend. Really quick.
Oh, that would have gone down very well, right?
Yeah, that would have gone over well. So yeah, so hopefully they learned the lesson from that. So yeah, I think these were pretty interesting fires. Next week, I kind of want to take it back a little bit of an origin story. So next week's kind of question or topic, I guess, would be how did we get started in our businesses? How did what's our I'm a big comic book guy. I like the origin stories of the various superheroes, and so this is going to be us telling our origin stories, how we got into business, how we got into the business that we're doing today. So I'm expecting some interesting stories from you guys because I feel like origins, like when you learn about how you got into business, you can actually apply that to new businesses, to startups. That origin story actually can become very useful because you can understand your clients that are just getting started or having to go through the growing pains of building a business. So I always like origin stories. So that'll be next week's topic. It'll be back to the regular Thursday, not the Wednesday. So next week we'll be doing it at, is it 3? That we do it at 3 on Thursdays? Is that what we're gonna work with? So stay tuned for that. And I think it should be a great episode. So again, thanks everyone for watching. And bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.